on nearly every website, form, social media platform, your EPK, every music streaming service is going to be asking you for a bio or a biography as an artist or as a band. So, with so much emphasis and importance in this one story you're going to be telling, do you feel like you've spent enough time thinking about this? Well, let's have a think on that. Hey, everybody, and welcome to today's episode. Today, we're going to talk about creating your band biography or artist biography, or the bio as it's often called. And we're going to get right into it and not waste any time. The first thing we want to talk about, of course, is why you're going to be doing this exact step and making special time for it. So, we have two different versions we're going to break down for you, and we have a great checklist that's going to work. And you can use that. You can go download that right now. Patreon, it's free, no email, no sign up, no nothing. Just go grab it. And with this, it's going to give you a big, long version of your biography. It's going to give you exactly the steps to go through. And then we'll tell you how you can use AI to do it if you're interested in that. We're going to tell you how to do it by yourself if you're not interested in going that route. And then we're going to show you how to use it throughout your entire platform, everything you touch, and put information about yourself. How are you going to use this as a branding kit, basically? So let's start at the beginning. Why do you need this? Why do you need to spend time in this? Why can't you just say whatever comes to mind and type it down every time it comes up? Well, the whole point of this is that in your career, you're going to be filling out these boxes, these forms, creating this content, these pages, these social media platforms that keep coming up. You're always going to be entering your about info or who we are. And if it's not concise, if it's different on their platform, people will start to think or not even take you seriously just because your branding is inconsistent and they don't know who you are. You don't know who you are. And that really can hurt you when you're trying to convey, we know who we are, you're strong, you're confident, and those kind of things can really, really move you forward as an artist and really put your best face forward. But what we're going to talk about first, of course, is with this checklist, you want to gather all the info in one place and just be able to glance at it as you need or copy and paste it as it is. The checklist that we're including has two versions. You can either print it off or just look at it and write down the answers on a separate piece of paper, or we have an interactive version, which you can click on and then type into the boxes all the information. So it's right there and you just copy and paste as you need. The information that you're going to need, of course, first is going to be your band name. And then that should always make sense. If you're just a solo artist, it's just your name, that kind of thing. The next thing you're going to want, of course, is the formation year. It's very important to know when you started on this journey and, under this name, this project. Be sure you're very specific about that. Next one is genre. And of course, we all like to be very broad about this or say, we're hard to define, or we like different kinds of music, or we're influenced by, such and such. I'm a blues, rock, rap, jazz, this or that. But you're going to find that the more honed in and the more specific you are about what genre you're actually in, that makes it easy for people to identify you and then find out more about you, the easier it is. You got to think of this as not the one thing that defines you as an artist or as a band musically. It's the beginning point where people will start to seek you out, and when they know that they like a general type of music, then they go deeper and see what's in there. So be sure to be okay with being general on this. If you're a, blues rock guitarist and you really like guitar and you add a little bit of jazz or whatever it may be, just put blues. That's fine. Then people will find you and then they will filter out everything else. They'll go deeper. It's totally fine. Be very specific with this, or as specific as you can, because the more pointed this is, the easier it is to direct it. The next thing on there is going to be your hometown or your origin, wherever you're starting at, wherever you want to call home base. This is always, especially as you're telling your story, there's got to be a reference, geography-wise, where this is happening. The next box down, of course, is members. You just want to list out any members. If it's just you, that's just fine. Just make sure that you have any, relevant information about what instrument they play, when they joined the band, any pertinent contact information, that kind of stuff. The next one down, of course, can be an overwhelming one, and we can spend too much time on it. So that's my big warning right there. Is just make sure that you're not spending too much time on this next one. Um, Influences. We all have tons, 10, 50, 20, 100 different influences. It's all over the place. We're all different. We all have different, especially it just depends on how much time you spent as a musician. The longer you've been around, the more you've been, subject to hearing different kind of music. You've changed. Your tastes have changed. I don't care who you are. Your tastes will change. Um, just make sure that you're getting, up to five. You should really limit yourself here, your five biggest influences. And let that filter down. And, if you have to find a way to pick those ones, make sure it's relevant to the genre you've picked. And then the next one up, we're going to be talking about your style and your signature sound. Make sure that maybe it's kind of hinting towards what that is. Now, as we're moving into that very next one, your signature style and your sound, um, this is really just taking all those influences and saying where you get to be hyper specific about something. Like as we said in the genre, don't go too deep in this. Don't go too hard about trying to differentiate yourself and stand out. This is that time to do that. Go deep into it. If, like we said in the beginning examples, if you were a blues rock guitarist that has jazz influences, this is where you go into that and, talk about where you wound up sound wise and how it got there and who's influencing it and where you're trying to go with that sound. This is that time. The next one underneath that, super straightforward, just all the links to your social media and your website, all that kind of information. Now, if you had done the work before and you've done the link in bio or you have a link tree or anything like that, the one link that we talked about earlier in early episodes, which I will link right here, you can just put one link. That's all you need. Here's everything you need in one link. See how easy that was? I told you guys it would come back. So use that. If not, just make sure all your links are up to date and they're not broken links. No, nobody likes that, and it really puts a lot of people off if there's broken links in there. The one underneath that, we're going to talk about your albums or releases. This is just where you talk about if you've done an EP, listed here. If you've done an album release, this is where it goes. If you've had just doing singles and you've had a couple tracks that have really done well with your fans and on Spotify or on, wherever it may be, or YouTube, it could be anything. Just make sure those are included here. Have the numbers, anything relevant like that. Next one up is your quotes and your testimonials. This here is where you're going to be talking about any kind of press you've had, like if you had any like hometown newspapers or the school newspaper, anything like that that's done any press for you, any reviews you've gotten on your albums or your art or your singles, anything like that. This is if you have any quotes from somebody saying it was good or I like this or it's the next best thing, anything like that. Include those that you can have those as a snippet, and just make sure that you have. As far as testimonies and all that kind of stuff, you can also throw in, which we're going to use later here, any kind of achievements or big milestones you've had. This is a great place to put that too. Um, those kind of things are huge, especially when it comes to sharing your story. And every story starts out with low points and high points. You want those high points included. So this is a great place to put that. So that's just the checklist there of the info you need. That's going to be very easy to access. Grab that. And next thing we're going to go on to is the two different versions you get. We're going to show you how you can do it by yourself and give you step by step how to do that. Or if you want to skip ahead, you can go to the AI version and we'll do that one second. So let's start on that. All right. So if you're wanting to do this yourself, let's go through the 5 steps you're going to have to go through to get this done. Again, this is going to be the longest form of this thing you do. So it's going to take a bit of writing. I would suggest setting aside 3 to 4 hours where you can be uninterrupted to just kind of go through your information, craft the best story you can, get a good rewrite in there, and just have it ready to go. The first step we want to talk about is crafting an engaging intro. And you only want this to be a couple sentences or a paragraph, but it's going to be a lot of information right away. So the information you want to convey as you're telling this story is going to, of course, your band name. You're going to talk about where you're from. You want that hometown in there. You want what genre you're part of. and you're going to talk about the formation time, the year. And you can be as specific or vague with that as you want, but this is a great place to get all that information really quick. You know, you can craft it in any kind of story you want, but including, you know, where you started, why you started, how it formed, you know, those kind of stories is a great way to, you know, pull in that first, that reader, that whoever it is, just right away. Here, we're ready to go. Bam. It's, you know, we call that the hook in music or whatever it may be. That's what you want here. The next thing after that first couple of sentences, a paragraph that was your engaging intro, is we're going to talk about any kind of background info. This part's going to be very short. With the background info, you're just going to break down exactly anything you couldn't get to into that intro. If you couldn't quite get the, you know, where we're from kind of thing, this is where you're going to get, make sure that all the picture is set right here. And it doesn't have to be a big thing either. This is pretty short itself, but you're just covering all your bases. And you can be very straightforward with this. It doesn't have to be such a story structure, but just make sure that you've got everything covered in that first two parts. You know, make it engaging intro. Anything you couldn't get into that engaging intro, include your background info, you know, where we started, you know, that kind of thing. Everything needs to be in that. The third part is we talk about just describing your music, making sure that they understand that that's the whole point of this, is you want them to understand who you are musically as an artist, as a band. So this is where you start talking about your influences, get those worked in there, how they influenced you, when they influenced you, what parts of their work influenced you, that kind of thing. Again, this is where you're telling a story from that perspective of those influences and how that created your style. You know, how did you get to that point where you are today to sound like you sound? You're kind of just working that pieces down, you're filtering it down and letting it tell its own story almost. And then in this, it's great to start talking about your band members, if they had different influences or how their influences and who they are musically started to influence your overall sound and, you know, shaped out everything. That's include those band members and how that works here. If you're just again, solo artist, you don't need any of that, but just keep it in mind. And of course, towards the end of here, it's a great time to start talking about what you're working on currently, where your sound has wound up, and what you're looking to get done. You know, hey, we're getting an album done. They're currently trying to create an entire album. If you're doing a, you know, any kind of like fundraising and those kind of things, this is a great place to have that kind of stuff. But you, of course, remember, if that's the case, if you're doing things that you're doing currently, you're going to have to update that. Keep it in mind. So after we've got our music described and we've got that story told, the next thing we want to go on to, of course, is highlights and achievements. And this is that section where we're talking about, you take any of the quotes or the testimonials you have in there and include all the things that you have for your achievements. You know, we played this big a show or this festival to this many people. It was a big win for us, and we're looking forward to playing an even bigger show. Those kind of things. Or we won this award, or we were, you know, our town's best new band. Those kind of things is where you start to slip in right at the end. You know, here's some things that validate us or that we've had as big wins as a band or group or an artist. And lastly, you're just going to get your contact info at the bottom. You know, if you want to get a hold of us, here's our information. Here's who to contact. Here's our email. It's usually pretty short. It is a great place to also include your EPK, which we talked about last week. I will include a card for that if you want to click on that and learn about how to make your EPK. But all that goes right there, just right at the end. So pretty straightforward. Like I said, a couple hours, that'll get it knocked out right away. If you want to go an easier route, let's talk about using AI. So if you want to use ChatGPT, just go sign into that. Use the checklist I've given you. That's exactly all the information you need. And you can feed that right into ChatGPT. You just tell it, I need a band bio, and here's the information I have. And you just list out, here's our band name, here's our, or when we started, here's our genre, here's, you know, our hometown, here's how many members we have, here's our influence, here's our style. It will craft a story for you in a bio, and you can then start to prompt it to kind of get it more where you want it to be. Do you want it less of a story, more of a story? Do you want it to be, you know, epic, less epic? I want it more professional, more formal. This is where you're giving those kind of prompts. And then, of course, I encourage you, when you get to the point where you're happy with it, copy, paste, take it out of there, and then spend some time crafting it and adding your own little embellishments and making sure it's coming from you. It's your perspective. It's got your flair. This is your branding. So that's what you want to make sure that it's in your voice. You know, we'll talk about this much later, but AI should only be a tool that you're using. It should not be the end result. It helps you get those creative and like creative fields going, those creative ideas, out and ready to go. And then it's your job to actually work with it. It's just like music. Somebody can give you all the chords, they can tell you a rhythm, but it's your job to finish that product. AI should never be the end result. It should just be a tool you're using. But it works well. Don't think any otherwise. It does work very well. So that's the two ways you can do this. The last thing we want to talk about here is just how you're going to use this going forward. So you've done all the work, you've got it ready to go. It's ready to be copy and pasted at any time. Now you use this anytime that you have to enter, if you're doing a website, your about me page or your biography page. If you're setting up your artist profiles for your streaming music, this is where you're going to pull from this to tell your story. You're going to find out what's relevant, what you want your listeners to hear or to read while they're listening to your music, and to want more, to learn more. You pull out what's relevant to this. I believe with Spotify, you're only allowed like 2-3 paragraphs, something like that. And so you're just going to make sure that you take as much as you can that makes this interesting and compelling, sets you apart, but tells your story. Bam. But because it's coming from the same source material that you've already done the work, this becomes, like I said, your branding kit. You're becoming specific. You're telling them exactly, who you are, and it's really you're crafting your story versus other people telling your story for you, which is a huge win. But just make sure, like that, those examples, even when it goes into your social media platforms like Instagram or Facebook, you're given a character limit, so you have to be very short. But just make sure this is where you're pulling the information from. If you only have 100 characters to work with, make sure that you're telling your story somehow, but getting everything that's important across. But it's coming from your one biography, and that's because you've done this work. It really does. No matter what comes up, if you have to get onto a new platform, if you have to start a new page, whatever it is, you've already done the hard work. It just comes from your bio. So doing this work is going to really help you out. If you have any questions, please get a hold of us. We've done a ton of these. We'll help you out. Use the checklist. It's available on Patreon. It's free. No signups, no nothing. Just go download it. There's a link below. I really enjoy doing all this for you guys. Just so you know, in the future, these have all been free. We've done a ton of checklists. We've done a ton of work to make everybody's, getting set up as an artist really easy, and we've done it for free. But at some point, I'm just, this will be behind either an email or a paywall at some point, if I'm being honest, because there's so much good stuff here. Make sure you just go get the free. While it's free, go get it. So I look forward to doing this for you guys again next week, spending some time with you, and we'll do it then. Till then, bye.